And we're live. What's going on, everybody? This is Kevin from the Thrifting Lounge, and I am really excited to have a good, awesome guest tonight, Linda Bottino. It's pronounced Bottino, right?
Yep, you got it.
And she specifically sells vintage pre-70s, correct?
No, through the 70s.
Up into the 70s.
Yeah.
But she also does estate sales too. So I was like, oh, you know, this will be a good subject to talk about, estate sales and definitely the vintage clothing, because I know Linda knows I'm dying to go to her house because she lives 2 towns up from me to look at the stuff that she has. But anyway, so Linda, I'll have you take it away and introduce yourself.
Hi, can you hear me? I was getting an echo because I think I still have the YouTube channel on. Sorry.
Oh yeah, you have to mute the YouTube channel. I didn't hear the echo.
I did.
I do it all the time.
Okay.
Normally, when you're doing that, ask everybody. Normally it's me, but today I didn't do it, so I'm happy.
Okay. Hi everybody. I'm Linda. I sell on both Etsy and eBay with mostly just vintage, 50s, 60s, and 70s. Mostly mid-century modern and the clothes that go with that era. What else?
How much of your business is Etsy? Because like I was telling you off camera, I'm looking to get into Etsy also, and I have the site ready to go. It just I haven't listed anything, and it's been there for like 3 months, just ready for me to list.
What I think you should do is just like do a bunch of draft listings and then go live with a bunch of stuff at one time, because the more you have on Etsy, the more you'll sell. I think I have like 285 items on Etsy, and at any given time I probably have 100 to 130 on eBay. But I sell much more on eBay because I think just more people are still on eBay than are on Etsy. Etsy's not as popular yet. And Etsy is still more oriented towards women. Like there's still a lot more ladies on Etsy than there is men.
Yeah.
I can't hear you. Oh, okay, now I can hear.
Sorry.
You sound funny. But I would say I probably sell a quarter on Etsy of what I do on eBay, but my profit margins are much, much better on Etsy because you can set higher prices on Etsy. And you're not, like with eBay, I do both buy it nows and auctions. With an auction, we'll start it at the least price we'll accept for that item. Where on Etsy, you can go a bit higher because people are more discerning. They know that you've done all the work for them and they're just going in and shopping. They don't mind paying a little more for the idea of knowing somebody's not going to beat them out of that item in an auction at the last second. They'll lose it. They can just buy it whenever they want to buy it. So there's not the urgency that eBay has, but it's getting bigger and bigger. Like every year there's millions and millions more people on Etsy, so it's definitely going to be as busy as eBay, I think, down the road.
Now my thing is with Etsy though, it's like with you it seems, because I know you have a lot of stuff listed on eBay, so if you're doing a quarter of things on Etsy, that's a lot of stuff, because I know everybody's like, you know, you can't make a living off of Etsy. It's more of like putting stuff up and trying to sell it. I don't know if anybody making a list off a living off Etsy.
I have a couple of people I know who do,
oh, yeah?
but they list a lot, and like out of my one friend who's been making a living on Etsy for a long time, she also lives with her parents, so it's not, you know, it's not like making a mortgage payment and that stuff. Like her bills are not as high as some people's. I think to make a living on Etsy, you would have to give up everything else. Like you couldn't do eBay as well, and you'd have to be listing, you know, 10 or 20 new things every single day and promote the heck out of it, you know, with Pinterest, with Facebook, with Instagram, like wherever you do your social media. You really have to promote with Etsy. Like eBay, people seem to find me, but on Etsy, I have to do more to get them to find me.
Okay, yeah. Because I know whenever I'm done listing an item on eBay, I do the Pinterest. Sometimes I skip the Twitter, and then I'll do the Facebook, because I know a lot of the bots come from Twitter. That just, it's like not even people, it's just, you know, bots or whatever that check out the listing to get your views up. But I also want to touch on something else that you've, I think it's kind of awesome. You've actually sold a few items, not on eBay, but from Etsy, that's gone to like costume designers from Hollywood into like some pretty popular TV shows.
Yeah. Yeah, that was probably like the morning I woke up and realized Mad Men had bought something. I was like so excited. And then I had that show. It's been canceled now. It was Vegas. It was a show with Dennis Quaid. I woke up to 5 things that they bought. It was like 2 ties, a coat, a dress, and a vintage 1950s brooch. So that was really cool. And then you found a picture of a guy from it wearing the tie, which I was so excited because I never watched the show.
I watched every single episode. I was actually a huge fan of that show. I liked how like it was all set up like back in the 1950s, how it was before like the real major boom hit in Vegas. And it was actually the mobster, I believe the main mobster, not the guy that played, not the guy, I forget his name, the bald-haired guy from Boston, from Massachusetts. So I know him by.
Oh, he was the guy that was in The Shield.
Yeah, The Shield. That's
right. I forget his name. He kind of creeps me out. I don't know who he is. There's something about that man. He gives me the creeps. I don't know. I don't really watch anything with him. Wasn't he he was in the Fantastic Four as well?
Yeah, he was in a bunch of movies, and he's actually pretty famous too. I can't believe I forget his name right now. So if everybody's in the comments section.
It's like Chickless. Something Chickless.
Yeah. Chickless. I forget his first name. But yes. Yeah. He's a Massachusetts native also, so it's the only reason why I know who he is.
He's good at playing a bad guy because he looks creepy.
Yeah, I kind of like him as a good guy though, but he was like a good bad guy in Vegas. But anyways, yeah, I was able to find a picture of the same exact tie that you sold him, which I thought was awesome because I'm like, dude, I am gonna find something that you sold of him on this.
That made my day.
Yeah, that was like 3 or 4 months ago, but I was like, dude, that is awesome. But anyway, so I want to talk a little bit about your business and how you started, because I know everybody's here for you, and they also want to know, I mean, why did you get into this, and especially vintage? What got you involved in vintage?
Vintage itself was something, I always liked older things. I was raised in an Italian restaurant in northern New Jersey. The restaurant had started in the 1920s. We had a lot of weird old Art Deco stuff. We had some interesting old stuff in the restaurant, and we lived above the restaurant. So I grew up with a lot of really old stuff around me, and I just think it, did something where I just appreciated older things. Then when I was like 14 years old, I went into New York City to visit my brother and his wife, and she took me to all these thrift stores, and I found this World War II whack dress, that the women's Army Corps or whatever it is wore, and I bought it, and it was like so exciting to me to be able to wear this, and I wore it to some school event, and everyone thought I was a weirdo. And like I was just so excited to have this dress to like not look like anybody else. They were all, wearing typical 70s, long hair parted in the middle, and I looked completely different. And it was just like my love of that stuff just developed from there. Like I realized I can find this stuff from different eras. I wish I still had that dress. I have no idea what I ever did with it. I probably gave it away. But from then on, I just started like finding things little by little, and I would save them. Like I had some of my mom's old clothes, and in the 80s, like in the heyday of the whole punk and new wave era, when I lived near New York, I dressed all in vintage all the time, like 50s and 60s. And it just, like once I got a little older and I couldn't wear it anymore, then the internet was happening, and I, ended up selling it on eBay. And it was just sort of a weird thing how I started on eBay. I had lost some weight, and I had a lot of like my business clothes, and I thought, like, I spent a lot of money on these clothes. I don't want to just give them away. So I started putting them on eBay, and they sold really fast. So from there, I thought, well, I'm always, going to garage sales and yard sales and estate sales, and I'm buying stuff that I really don't have any place for. So why don't I start doing that? So I just play around on weekends and things. Like it was just a hobby. Like I love the thrill of the hunt. But then I was, like having too many things, like how many vintage sets of canisters can a girl have in their apartment kitchen? So then I started selling it, but then I lost my job. And it was right when, like, my husband and I weren't married yet. He was in school, and, we wanted to get married in a couple of years. Like, so while I was job hunting, I started doing it full time. And it was, then the recession hit. There was no job to find. Like, I was getting hardly any interviews. So I just really, like, started doing it really hard and working a lot harder at it. And like the first year I did it, it paid for our whole wedding. Like, we did everything through our PayPal account, and it just became so much more than just a hobby. And now I realize I love it, and I don't make the money I used to make, but I absolutely love what I do. And then, and to find a guy who also loves it as much as I do, like, that was gold, to find my husband who wants to go to estate sales and pick, like, he's a better picker than I am. Like, it just went from there. And then because I like vintage clothing, and eBay's not really the best venue for vintage clothing. People don't want to pay for it, really, like what they'll pay on Etsy. So I started doing Etsy for the more girly stuff, vintage clothing, vintage sewing patterns, fabrics, women's accessories like vintage purses, that kind of stuff.
Now, I have a little story. You know the story I'm going to talk about with me and your husband. When the first time I met you, you were in the closet of an estate sale. This was, what, almost a month ago? And I'm like,
yeah.
I wasn't even noticing. I picked these glasses up, not knowing what they were. I didn't bother looking at the rims. I'm more like trying to get in, you know me, I was more like trying to get into that small little closet you and your husband was in.
That closet was tiny.
It was super tiny. And then he turned to me, and we start talking. We come out, we're in the closet talking, and then your husband comes up, and he's like, wow, I can't believe they didn't see this. And I'm like, man, I just had those in my hands. What does he have? He's like, these are old vintage Ray-Ban prescription glasses. And I'm like, no, you kidding me? I had them in my hands the whole time.
We sold those last night.
Did you?
I think they made $79. He bought them for $1, and I think they made $79.
Oh, man. And I just put them back down because I didn't even look at the sides of the glasses, man. I'm like, oh, my gosh.
We buy vintage Ray-Bans all the time. We even buy, like, the cases for Ray-Bans. I just bought a case for Ray-Bans for 25 cents at a sale, and that sold for, like, 28 or 24 or something like that. Just the case. Wow.
Now, does it matter if it's new or vintage, the case?
No, not really. But it just happened to be the ones we found were vintage.
Yeah.
But, yeah, new ones will sell as well, I'm sure.
I just think that's hilarious, man.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, Linda, already coming up. But then I got a few things underneath your nose. You missed on that Brioni tie that I have up here that I'm selling for $60 now.
And
so
that's just not a name I know. And you know what? Like, I'll look at ties if I like the design on the tie, and I just don't buy new ties. Like, I only want old ties. We buy skinny ties. We really don't buy modern ties. And I'm just not crazy about them. And my husband's the tie guy. Like, he's got a huge tie collection, and he keeps a lot of them, but he sells a lot as well. So I just don't look at them that much, like, unless it's a really cool, like, 40s swing era or 50s, like that iridescent skinny. I just don't really care, unless it's like Pucci or something. Like, this past year I bought 5 Pucci ties at a garage sale for like 50 cents each.
I've never ran across Pucci at all. I even looked too. I've actually been able to find some. I think I hit my first find of Eileen Fisher last week. A nice jacket from her. So that should do well. But
I thought you guys were saying Hoochie.
No, not Hoochie. My girlfriend's back here like, I thought you were saying Hoochie. I'm like, no, Hoochie.
Yeah, Emilio Pucci. He was like the father of the psychedelic print.
Yeah. It's crazy, though. I'm like, oh, man. But the name Brioni, I want you to sit tight in your head. This is the reason why. That jacket behind me, it's a sport. It's like a sport jacket or a blazer, whatever you want to say. But it's got these cool buttons on them. But the cuffs open up for surgeon cuffs. And
I don't even know what that is.
Surgeon cuffs are like cuffs that actually you can roll them up, like on a sport jacket or blazer. You can roll the things up.
Like Miami Vice style.
Yeah, you can roll this. They open up and you roll up. Anyway, so my good friend Hearts Pickers Ronnie Part told me, he sent me a list and he's like, you should get about $300 to $500 off that jacket. He's like,
that's amazing.
He's like, I don't know how you've been so lucky, man. It was so funny.
You have a good eye. You really developed a good eye for things pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know new clothes. Like, I just don't know a lot about new clothes. I don't really like new clothes. I probably pass up great stuff that I could make a fortune on. I just don't look at new stuff. Like, it just doesn't speak to me.
Yeah. See, that's how I want to be with you, though. I want to be able to, like, know the new clothing and hook up with you and figure out the vintage clothing, because I do have some vintage female stuff hanging around that has union labels but no other label. And it's like a
Yeah, a
sheet.
lot of older stuff has no label at all, and a lot of older stuff sometimes will just have a store label, so you
Yeah.
don't really know who the manufacturer was. Like
Yeah.
I sold a bunch of stuff to go into like an archive museum of the guy that gave Perry Ellis his start in the business had a company. I can't even think of his name right now because I wasn't like prepared to think about it and look for it. But I sold a bunch of stuff to his daughter, contacted me and said, you know, you have a few different things. And so she ended up buying a few things for the archive from me. And, like, I got a lot of information from her, which was really neat, like about, like you'll see Campus Casuals, I think is one of the, no, College Town. You'll find old College Town clothes, and there was a lot of brands he did. And he was the first person who ever hired Perry Ellis and gave him his first job in fashion. And then... Yeah, he died quite young. He died of a heart attack at like 52, this man. And then Perry Ellis left and went and started his own fashion house.
You're telling me if I find College Town, buy it? Because I've passed College Town up 3 different times, and they were nice.
It doesn't necessarily go for big money. It's just that it's a good brand. Like, they made cute clothes for young women, like in the 60s and 70s. It really was like for the college-age girl. Because before, say, like the mid-60s, clothes were not made for young people. You either had children's clothes or you had adult clothes. There was nothing for the girl in between, like, say, from 14 to 24. You either dressed like a little girl or you dressed like a grown woman. And then they realized this is a whole group of people who want to dress not like their mom and not like little girls. And he was, like, right at the forefront of that when that changed and that age girl became important. I mean, and look how it is now. They're the ones who set the fashion trends, not the moms, you know.
It's kind of like the same thing with Yves Saint Laurent. I mean, he brought up great designers with Christian Dior and Tom Ford and stuff like that. And now people are like, oh, the labels, ever since Tom Ford left, the labels kind of gone to crap, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I still love this stuff. I pick up everything YSL. It goes back to my car selling days where I've always bought everything I see. I don't care if it's too big for me. I'll buy it. If I can't sell it, I'll keep it myself. I have this awesome, it's in the other room where my kids sleep, an awesome smoker's jacket from YSL, and it's made in France, and it's absolutely gorgeous. I'm selling it for like $140, but I'm trying to overprice it so I can just keep it a little longer.
Yeah.
It's my favorite, one of my favorite items, you know.
There's certain things that, like, you know, you should sell, but you price it where you get to hang on to it for a while.
Yeah, and then there's sometimes where you think you priced it good, and it just sells, and you're like, I really wish I didn't sell that.
Yeah, exactly. I've had things go like that. And sometimes, like, I'll buy something, like, not necessarily clothing, but something for the house, and I really love it. And I think I should sell it because I think it's valuable, but, like, we'll live with it for a while. And then after about a year, say I'm rearranging things, all right, yeah, okay, I guess we had our fun out of this. Let's let it go on to a new home, you know, and we'll get rid of it finally.
I also want to talk about, I mean, you sold like 3 most gorgeous, I believe it was 3 dresses, the most gorgeous dress I've ever seen in my life. They were from Izod Lacoste, and you sold them for, how much was it again? You sold them for really good money.
I think I sold for like $45 to $65. I think I have 3 or 4 in stock right now. Those are the ones that are going to be in that documentary that's coming out in just a couple of weeks.
Explain that, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. I've sold some before, but right now I have a bunch in stock. I was kind of hanging on to them because it was the wrong season when I found the first 3 or the first 2, and then it was really, you know, summery, getting time to put them on, and I found more. And that was right when that lady contacted me about using them for the documentary.
Now, do you want to explain the documentary?
Well, it's The Lost Twin Cities. It's about, I guess more the 60s and the Twin Cities, wherever the heck that is. You know,
I think it's Minnesota, isn't it?
Minnesota. I think it's like St. Louis and, like, I don't know. There's 2. I don't know. It's nowhere I go because I don't want to go to the middle of the country. It's cold.
I know. We moved from up north, so it's like, no.
It's going to be about like an era and this department store. Like, I think they do like a series, and this is about these department stores from the 60s that were like the height of fashion at the time, where the women waited to see what was going to be in that window, and then they knew that's how they had to dress, kind of a thing. I saw a few stills from it that they put up on their Facebook page, and it looks really cool. Like, I think I'm going to like it. I'm excited to see my stuff on there, and I'll get credit for it. Like, I had them just put my store in the credits.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
That was cool.
And
if anybody in Minnesota likes vintage and wants to buy it,
So it's actually in Minnesota now?
No, I just sent them pictures. That's all they wanted.
Oh, okay.
They got to keep the dresses to sell them. They just wanted pictures.
And they're gorgeous. Seriously, I look at these dresses. I'm like, I have never seen dresses this well made.
They're just classic ladies, casual 60s kind of stuff. Like, they're really almost like a polo shirt in a way, but a little different.
Now, I want to touch on a few things of how, because I know a lot of people want to learn about vintage, because I know a couple of people here are asking about how to learn from vintage. And there's a few ways that you can tell, whether it's whether from the union label or the seams or the cut of the dress. Because you mainly deal with women's clothing, which.
All right. I have like 5 different outfits, and I'll explain why they're vintage and when they're from. Say, all right, this first dress, I hope you can see it. It's made of bark cloth.
You may want to bring it closer to the camera.
Bark cloth is kind of like what people call bark cloth and what actual bark cloth is 2 different things. Actual bark cloth is made of bark, and it's very, very fibrous, and it would not be clothing. What this is cotton bark cloth, which is the texture of bark cloth but in a softer cotton, and that's really mostly what you'll find when people say bark cloth. They mean textured cotton, not true bark cloth. Now, this dress is cotton bark cloth. It's like a traditional, almost like a Middle Eastern paisley kind of a pattern. It's like a real classic style in A-line, flares out a little bit at the bottom. Now, I grabbed it because I liked the fabric. It was cool looking, and I really didn't see inside of it until I already decided I was buying it just because I liked it. But then I looked up the label, which is, this is a Seal Chapman casual, which is something Seal Chapman's not known for. She was a designer in the 50s and 60s, and it was mostly really fancy clothing, like really ball gown kind of stuff, cocktail dresses. And one of the ways to know that it is that old is if you open it up and you look at the seams. The seams have this little jagged edge, like they were cut with pinking shears. And that means it was hand cut with pinking shears by a human, not like cut on a big not cut with a machine. Plus, they finish things off nicely. Like, they use seam binding. It is, like 100% lined. Like, so those are little things that would tell you, even if there was no label, that it's an older garment. When you see those little jaggedy seams, you know it's something older or something Hawaiian, because they still cut a lot of Hawaiian clothes by hand today. So that would be, like, this is probably around 1960 to 63 maybe. And it has no union label. It's only Seal Chapman's label. And you can, like, the best resource for vintage labels is that Vintage Fashion Guild. You can look up your union labels and all your, like, designer house labels. So that would be, like, a really old item. Then this dress, you can tell by the print that it's a little later. Like, it's super psychedelic.
Oh, that is wild.
It's a mini dress. And, oh yeah, one of the things I didn't say about the bark cloth dress, metal zipper. Like, when things are older, they have a metal zipper. And say in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, most women's dresses were very fitted, and the zipper would be here on the side, under the arm, down past the waist. And it was a pain in the neck to get into some of those clothes. That's why they were still, yeah.
You're looking for a zipper right here in the side, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But back then, women were wearing corsets, girdles, all kinds of stuff to suck them in, and their clothes fit very tightly, and that really gave you a good fit. By, say, like 1960, that zipper pretty much migrated to the center of the back, which is where it has stayed. And that's another way to know that that dress is a little later. So this dress, the next thing that went is the zippers are now nylon, not metal anymore. And now this dress, the inside of the dress, you'll see the difference on the seams that started in, say, like 66 to 68. The seams are all sewn over. They're not jagged anymore. They're straight, so they were probably cut with a machine, and they sew right over that.
Okay.
So it's like sewn on the seam, and then it's sewn again over that thing, like with a, I don't know what kind of stitch that's called. So that would be a way to know it's a little later. Plus, it's Dacron polyester, and when everything started going polyester, like before mid-60s, most things were natural fabrics. I mean, some things were polyester, like certain sweaters and things like that, but most things were either linen, cotton, or silk, or wool. But then once they realized, like, that clothes, you could wash and wear clothes, polyester became the king, you know? So then that's a little later, but there's no tags in it, so you can't know exactly when it's from. The next
you basically use keywords that would fit that dress, correct? Instead of like not having the name brand for it?
Yeah, like you would just say, you could say Poochie inspired because it is a very Poochie print. You could say neon because that was big at that time, psychedelic, trippy.
Austin Powers.
Yeah, or even like, you know, just that it's a mini dress and stuff like that, you know, like, because that was like the era where hemlines got a lot shorter.
Okay.
Although necks were still very high. Like cleavage didn't happen. Like cleavage was big in the 30s and 40s, and then in the 50s everything went very high and modest, and it stayed that way in the 60s really, but they got short. Then the next dress. Now, and this one is a new with tags vintage dress. It's got like a really mod print. It's made out of cotton, and it's a famous Hawaiian designer, Malia. And while it looks really like 60s and fun because it's very mod with the black and white print, we know it's older because with the tag is not only what the fabric is, it's a fabric care tag telling you how to wash it. So in 1972, the law went into effect, like the world over, that you had to tell people how to take care of their clothes. Because before this, if it said anything, it would say hand wash or dry clean. Those are the only two things they told you. And they used to tell you to dry clean everything, which is ridiculous because why would you dry clean cotton? But like this one tells you how to wash it. So you know it's 1972. But we know it's very close to 1972 because it has the tag and there's no barcode. Like it's just the price tag and what store it's from.
Crazy.
So somebody had to sit there and type it in, not scan it. So you know it can't be too much after 1972 because then a few years later everything had the scanning code.
Now, where'd you get that dress, and how much do you think that will go for?
I paid only $1 for it because it was stained really badly. It was very, very yellowed. So I took the tags off and I washed it, which I know is a no-no with a new with tags item, but it was the only way to know if somebody was going to be able to buy it, because really, if all the white parts were yellow, nobody was going to look at it. So I disclosed all of that in the listing. It'll probably make about 50, where if it was new with tags and it was pristine and I didn't have to wash it, it would probably have made like 80, say.
Oh,
if
yeah.
not, maybe more, like 80 to 100, because Malia stuff is a good seller. I've sold it before. There's a lot of people who collect it, because it's like traditional Hawaiian, but it's mod at the same time. All right, then... Oh, something that we touched on today in the Thrifting Lounge, somebody who was asking about faux fur. And I grabbed this item. How fabulous is that coat?
Oh, gosh.
Pretty cool, right?
Yeah, it's got like gold buttons on it. Am I correct?
Yeah, it snaps. And it's like super 70s pimped out, ridiculous coat, but it's fantastic. Cool. I mean, it's really awesome. And on, it's like faux leopard and faux mink. And on the label, it's got like your, you know, the maker, which is Safari, styled by Russell Taylor, fabric by La France, whatever that means. Cleaned by fur coat method only.
So you cleaned it like it was a fur coat, correct?
Right. So that's telling you, you have to clean it like a fur coat, but it's not really a fur coat. Like somebody touched on that today and said, oh, if it says that, it's faux fur. And that's exactly right. You know, it's fabulous, though, and I think it'll make really good money. And as soon as it's a little colder, I'll put it on.
Yeah.
So, But this is just really cute. And this is a coat that I probably won't even list on Etsy or eBay. I'll probably list it on a Facebook group where there's a lot of girls who dress in vintage, and they will jump on this really fast.
Wow.
And then I won't have to pay fees to eBay or Etsy, only to PayPal. That's a plus.
That's
Then
cool.
I have one other dress, which I have to grab because I have it. It's very long. It's like a gown.
Hi, Chad. Nikki says hi, Chad.
All right.
And Ken.
I still have it in the dry cleaning bag. Because now this one I spent like a decent amount of money on and then had it dry cleaned because it was water stained. I'm hoping it's like a pale pearl gray. Like it's kind of hard to see. Like the light's probably not good enough.
Doesn't look like white. Definitely doesn't look white.
Yeah, and it's got like a jacquard kind of a swirled print, and it's got a peplum, which is a really a thing that's pretty trendy right now in clothes. But it was trendy in the 80s. It was trendy in the 60s. It was trendy in the 40s. Like every 20 years or so, it comes back.
Yeah.
And it's like a fitted waist that then goes out over the hip. And now this dress is a custom-made dress. I bought it from an estate, and the woman who was still alive from the estate said it had been her mother's dress and that she had it custom-made. There's no tags whatsoever, and the ways, like if you didn't know what it was, like you'd know it was a good garment because it just looks like a really classy dress.
All right.
But not only does it have the pink seams, they're notched in different places. So it was made like by a seamstress who used a pattern.
Yeah.
So she started it with a pattern and then made it to fit this woman. So there's no tags whatsoever, and so like you can figure out it's a custom-made garment just from the detail in it. It's absolutely stunning. It's got little pads in the shoulders, which is a 1940s thing. So it's probably like mid-40s.
Wow. And you found that in a estate sale?
Yeah, I think I bought it down in Melbourne.
Okay.
In this really funky little horrible house. This like little tiny 2-bedroom cottage type of concrete block house. Like you wouldn't have thought anything classy would have come out of there, really. Like I think the family fell on hard times, but at one time was quite wealthy and had their clothes custom made. But yeah, it's fabulous. And it's so tiny that when I put it on my dress form, which is a size 2, I couldn't get it zippered at all.
Hey, that's small.
So it's like a 000.
Wow, it must have been like her like college dress or something.
Well, no, all the women were that small back then.
Oh wow.
Like everybody was tiny. That's like another thing with vintage clothing. You have to measure everything so carefully. Like I measure across the shoulders, across the bust, under the bust, at the waist, at the hip. I give all the dimensions, like your length, your sleeve, every dimension you can possibly give, down to like the sweep of a skirt, because it's really hard to fit. And girls who wear a lot of vintage clothing, they don't eat a lot. They're like models. Because if you want to fit into vintage clothing, you have to be tiny, tiny, tiny. Like if you're going to wear things from, say, the 40s or the 50s or the 60s, it's like I'm a chunky girl. Like I can't fit into hardly anything from that era. And I love the 50s and 60s. But I'd have to lose 50 pounds and still barely eat to ever wear anything from that era. Like I'm lucky when I can find 70s stuff that fits. People were small.
Yeah.
Sizes are completely different. Like a lot of people like to say, oh, you know, if Marilyn Monroe was around today, she'd be considered fat because she was a size 16. That's not a size 16 now. I'm a size 16. Marilyn Monroe was like a size 4. You know, by modern standards.
That's what I'm saying. Like I had a guy today. I told you before. He's threatening me with right now. He's threatening me with like not leaving feedback or negative feedback. I can't really tell what he's talking about. But he claimed the package was stolen on his porch, and then I had buyer protection, and then so he must have found that out. Now he's claiming that he miraculously found the package at FedEx, and that it does not fit as an XL. It fits as a medium, and something else because he's an XL and he's like, it fits as a medium. I wrote, well, first, I said to him, I go, you need to check the measurements. Before you bought, you should check all the measurements I have. And you should also have checked my guidelines that say I take returns if sizing doesn't fit. And I'm
right.
like,
instead of trying to fight you about it and lying and all of that stuff.
I think what it is he actually got it stolen, and he's just trying to look for any little thing right now to get money back because he knows he's that I'm under the buyer protection. So it's like I'm just like I was being real nice about it. I'm like, if you do have it, you send it back and I'll return it. And I also said, you do know this dates back to 1950s. This is the Litt Brothers. Litt Brothers ran out of business in the early 60s. You do know this is a vintage overcoat from the 60s, sorry, the 50s. So you do know that these sizes back then are not the same now. But
and if he's an XL, good luck finding things that'll fit. This is, and I always get emails like, I'll have all the things and I'll say, marked to size 10, but is more like a modern size 4 with, say, 34 bust and, 24 waist and 34 hips. And I'll have some girl go, oh, I really love this dress. I'm a 38, 28, 38 hip. And I'm like, do you think I can squeeze into it? I'm like, well, if you think breathing is overrated, you can try. But, I put all the... I put the measurements there, and I have a fit guide that says, I measure everything flat on a table. If it's 20 inches across at the bust, 20 and 20 is 40, but then you have to subtract an inch because you want to be inside the dress. Like it's gotta be able, especially with women, like it's got to go across your boobs and not be splitting open. Like that's an issue with things that have buttons or anything. Like it looks terrible to have something not fitting right. I really am so careful about giving good descriptions, but women also have to know what their size is. Like you can't just go, well, I'm a size 10, 10 fits me. You have to know what is your bust, what is your waist, what is your hips. It's really important.
I just felt like he just randomly picked a list in and he bought it and was like, oh, well, it looks like I don't do returns, but yet I return everything. If you have a problem,
I don't do returns. Because of selling vintage, I won't do returns, and I lost my eBay discount because of it, but I don't care. With vintage clothing, you will get the people who want to wear it for a party and send it back and then say, this didn't really fit me right. So I'm just not taking it back. If somebody emails me that there's a problem, like I say I didn't see something, I missed a spot, I made a mistake, then I'm happy to take it back, no questions asked, no problem. But I have to look at it on an individual basis because I'm going to get 80 million girls buying stuff for Halloween and then telling me it doesn't fit.
And that's exactly what it is, though. It's like I feel like with the buyer, I feel like the buyers have a lot more rights than us sellers, even though we're doing.
Oh God, yeah.
I have 100% feedback, and this kid's trying to threaten me with negative. So I had to call eBay up just before I was on the phone with you, and they sent me somewhere else, and they're like, no, you should be covered. You'll be fine. So I'm like, all right, and he's a higher up, so he has that marked down. I'm like, I just don't want to be threatened by anything because I'm trying to do everything right. I'm doing everything by the book. I'm taking the time out.
Yeah.
But anyways, so we have
I've had to contact eBay a few times about people who, got threatening. I think somebody told me yesterday that I suck because I had an item for $38 that consistently sells at about that price, and she emails me and goes, I'll give you 18, shipping included. And she's got 33 feedback. She's only been in eBay for 1 month and has gotten 33 feedback in a month. So this is somebody who either had a problem with their old account and just started a new account. Who joins eBay and buys 33 things in 1 month? That's a little weird anyway. So I'm thinking sketchy. And I just didn't like the whole, it was a kind of a funny tone and all these misspellings in it. I'm like, if you're going to email and, at least use some kind of grammar, punctuation, I don't know, spelling. So she offers, $18, shipping included. And I emailed back and I said, look, I see that you're fairly new to eBay. Number one, you're asking for free shipping. Sellers don't set shipping price. The USPS does. I can't give you free shipping because they don't give me free shipping.
Yeah.
That's just the price of doing business online. You pay for shipping. And I said, and you're offering me half of what I'm asking and you want free shipping on top of it. I said, that's kind of insulting. If you had made a decent offer, like instead of lowballing me like that, I would have entertained it. I said, but instead I feel I have to block you because I feel this was really inappropriate. And she comes back and sends me one that's still on, that's at $18.50, and says, see, this is what they sell for. And I'm like, yeah, it's got 6 more days and it's at $18.50 now, so no. And by the way, don't worry, I won't ever email you again, and I won't ever buy anything from you because you suck as a seller. I'm like, yeah, thank you for the heads up. You're a jerk. Like, I've already blocked you. Don't email me. It's like, that's not a seller, that's not a buyer we want anyway, because sometimes you know that somebody's a problem. I had a lady on Etsy. She emailed me for 3 days straight asking questions about a dress. Do you think I could iron it? Do you think the wrinkles would come out? How old are you? You know, asking like dumb questions. Finally, on the 3rd day, and I've been really nice and I've answered the question, she goes, can you tell me what size do you think it is and what the measurements are? I'm like, you've been looking at a dress for 3 days and you haven't read the description, because I have every single measurement there. So I emailed back and I said, it would really help if you just looked at the description again and looked at those measurements and, you know, measure them against your own clothing to see if this will fit you. And she's got a picture of herself with her kid, and like not that she looked heavy, but like she wasn't a little tiny girl, and this dress is a 00. So I'm thinking, is this for your kid? Because it's not going to fit you, is what I'm thinking. And then she stopped emailing. Like, it took you 3 days to bother to read the description to see that this is a 00. Like, what the heck?
It takes time out of what you're doing, because, like, you got to really factor in, you know, what you bought the item for and stuff, and then on top of it, you're spending 3 days writing back and forth. It's still the bottom line on what you're trying to sell for, you know. You're still trying to sell for a certain amount, but
getting something listed.
Yeah. But anyways, we have actually a pretty good question. I'm sure you'll easily be able to answer, because I'm pretty sure it's an easy answer. Kathleen Brown asked question: is there a market in Asia for smaller sizing? Guessing there is. Etsy is global. I definitely say Asia loves Levi stuff, especially the small Levi stuff.
Yeah. It's funny, I have not sold a ton of clothing to Asia, but I've sold a lot of fabrics to Asia, because I think they seem to love novelty, vintage fabrics. Like, the crazier, the wilder, they want it right away. Like, I literally, the crazier the pattern is, and it doesn't really even matter the size, I no sooner list it on Etsy, and somebody's emailing me from South Korea, from Japan, somebody from Asia wants it, and how much is it to ship there? That the wilder the fabric is, I know it's going to go really fast, and they love the craziest prints. Like, I just sold this crazy print that was all like puppies and kittens to this girl who's like bought from me a few times. Like, it's a really silly print, and I'm thinking, what are you going to do with this if you're a grown woman? But maybe it's for a kid, I don't know. But she's bought like maybe 3 times for me. The same girl has bought, and every time it's a wild, weird novelty print.
I had a guy, speaking about people buying back from me, because I love following up with my customers and stuff like that, and I had a guy recently buy 2 things in one night, and then a week before, because I had to do my feedbacks, and I do them usually weekly, he bought another thing from me, and the week before that he bought something else from me. So I'm like, I sold to this guy 4 different times. That's awesome. You know, and it was three different times, 3 different periods, and they all went to Brazil. And he gives me, even before he receives the item, he gives me positive feedback.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Well, like, it stinks if something goes wrong and they've left feedback. You know, but
it happened to me once with a little robot, animatronics, and the guy bought it new and packaged from 2004, and I sent it to him. He bought it for $100, and I had all the pictures. I was clear about it, and the guy's like, "Where's the remote?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "There's supposed to be a remote with this." I'm like, "There's no remote with this. There was no remote on the box that said there was a remote." And so the guy's like, "Well, I need my money back," and he just purchased. He just sold somebody a globe that was broken, because I looked at his feedback. So what it looked like was, but he was asking for half the money back, which was the exact amount of money back that he needed to give back to the guy that broke something. So he was trying to get money back to pay this other guy that he sold something to. And I'm like, I called eBay up. He's like, "Did they leave you positive feedback already?" I'm like, "Yep." He's like, "Don't contact them." So it went away.
There's a lot of stuff like that. Like, a seller who I'm friendly with in one of my vintage groups. I'm in a few groups on eBay, on Facebook, and I'm in this vintage group called Got Vintage Shops, which is really, it's a great group, and it's really helpful for, like, we have a dealer support, and everybody helps each other with IDing stuff, and there's for sale pages so you can put your links up, but it has to be vintage stuff.
Yeah.
And one of the girls sold something to a buyer in England. I think it was some kind of a lighter, like a vintage lighter, and it was sterling silver, and he got it, and he claimed it was broken. And on her listing, she said, like, for repair, that I think there's a little something wrong with it, and she explained everything, but it was fine. Like, you just had to put a new flint in it or something silly like that. And it was explained. It was in the pictures. Her description was right on. Oh, you sold me this broken piece of junk, all this crap. He tries to get his money back. He gets into this big argument with her over it, where there's all this nastiness back and forth. And, they both contacted eBay about it. And, like, 2 weeks later, she's aggravated about it. She goes, I'm going to look in his shop. He's selling the same thing. And he's, like, saying, it's great. I put a new flint in it. It's perfect. And it had something on it that she knew it was the exact same one, like whether it was a monogram or something. So she contacted eBay and said, this is the man who said I sold him a broken thing and that it was incomplete, and he's selling the exact same item. And he copied and pasted her description. So it's like, stole the item, and now you stole her words as well. And eBay, like, flagged him and took it off and gave her money back, like, through PayPal and stuff. It's like, how shady. And because he was in England and she's in the U.S., like, when you're selling something overseas, you don't have a lot of recourse if things go bad. Like, not that I've had very many issues. Like, on eBay, I sell more bigger stuff, so I tend to only stay in the U.S., and I make people ask me if I'll ship internationally. On Etsy, I sell tons of stuff internationally, but of course it's mostly clothing, so it's lightweight. It can go first class international. It's easy, and just wrap it in tissue paper in a plastic poly bag, and off it goes. Never really is there any problems, but something like that, like, how shady can you be?
I've heard nightmares like that. I'm just like, man, where do these $18, $15, $20 you're out of, but, like, why do you it seems to be always the small items you get negative feedback on. The big items, people are just, like, happy with it, or they'll give.
I have to say, like, I've had more issues with problem buyers on eBay than I have on Etsy. Okay. And, maybe when Etsy has as many million people on it as eBay does, we'll have just as many. But I've had more problem buyers who complain and do, like, that whole feedback. It's like, if you don't do what I want, I'll leave you bad feedback. And instead of and instead of just saying, I received this and it really isn't what I was expecting, and I don't think your description was quite honest. Like, if you had just started it out like that, I'll be, saying I'm sorry and trying to fix it for you. But if you start it with, I could leave you bad feedback if you don't do what I want, it's kind of like, well, you're a jerk. Now I don't want to do anything for you.
All right, before we wrap this up, I want to talk a little bit about the whole inside working on, like, estate sale stuff like that, because I know that I think maybe my future down the road is doing exactly what you're doing right now, helping estate sales, because I know you know everybody ins and outs of estate sales, and I would love to work under you whenever my girlfriend, whenever I can make this eBay stuff full-time and my girlfriend can, be home with the kids, because I think the estate sales are, like, where you can really make really good money. Like, the estate sale we went to a few weeks ago, I picked up, I think I spent like we spent $150, and we'll probably make it easy. I want to say $1,500 to $1,800 plus.
That's amazing. This is what makes me think I need to buy newer stuff, but I just can't bring myself to do it. Like, I know there's a lot of money in a lot of newer stuff, but vintage is just what I love.
It's awesome.
And, well, it's really nice. Like, I think in the 3.5 years I've lived in Florida, like, when we came here, I thought, oh, I'm losing all my contacts. I knew everybody at the estate sales there. But I'm outgoing. Like, so I met everybody who does estate sales here, and I've gotten friendly with everybody. And, like, you saw how, like, when I introduced you to Jeannie and I said, oh, he likes to spend money at sales, Jeannie. You should let him come in.
Yeah.
And right away she invited you to come early, and she's a doll. Like, she's such a nice woman.
Normally I bring $200-300 with me if I know I can come out really good, and I pre-plan. But, I mean, I was like, man, all I had was like $80 after I went to the thrift shop, the church one over in the big one in Salt Lake Beach.
Oh, we
Indian
love
Harbor.
that one. It's by
So
it's
much
a great
stuff.
house.
They're kind of expensive. They're kind of expensive, but I mean, I score every time I go there.
Yeah, we do too. We love that place.
But
That's
yeah,
one of our favorite thrifts.
it's they're people that are really nice, and they price stuff kind of high. But like, if you can get something, I thought, like I said, I've been there, and they have stuff that's super expensive. And that day, I didn't buy anything, but I spent $12 in a Burberry military style jacket that I'm in the middle of trying to sell for $250. And
That's great, yeah.
that's what I'm saying. Like, every time I go there, it's like
It's a nice church, and people in that area have a little bit of money. They have nice things. Like yesterday, Roy and I drove down to the Jensen Beach area, just like we took a day to go look at another area of Florida we'd never been. So, like, we went down there, we drove around, we looked at houses, we looked at the beach, we looked at businesses, we went to lunch, we stopped in a couple of thrifts. They had a whole rack of Lilly Pulitzer.
No, where was this?
This was down in Jensen Beach. It wasn't like a Goodwill. It was a Goodwill boutique.
Oh,
And
yeah,
I bought a pair of Lilly Pulitzer shorts and a pair of Lilly Pulitzer long pants, like beachy kind of pants, really
like
cute.
Capris? I got one of the capris, her capris.
They weren't cheap. The pants needed it had a loose button and it had a loose hem. So they were only $10, but like it took me 2 minutes to resew the button and resew the hem. I mean, it's just so easy. And the shorts were $18, which is a lot for shorts.
Yeah.
But they'll probably make at least $40, if not more. Like the last time I sold a pair of Lilly Pulitzer shorts, they were men's and they were from the 80s and they made $108.
Men's go really good.
And I only paid like 50 cents for them, so it's killing me that I paid $18 for these. And women's shorts don't sell like the men's shorts, but women's dresses sell really well. You have that fruit slice.
Already sold. It sold within not even 3 days. I sold it for $50, even with the stain right here. And that's what I tell everybody. And Golden Finger Picker told me, he goes, "Thanks for telling me about how you sell stuff with a couple defects, because I just sold I got rid of a Woolrich, like it was kind of like a double-breasted pockets. I want to say like a CPO jacket.
Yeah.
And, so he sold that, and it's funny because you said it had like a stain right here. It wasn't too hard to see or anything like that, but like if you first glance, you can't see it, but you really got to be looking at it. And I sold that for $55, I think, plus shipping. And the lady left me positive feedback because
That's nice. Hey, as long as you disclose issues, as long as you disclose everything, like with vintage clothing, there's often issues. There's funny things. Like I've sold things with broken zippers, and like I sold a pair of pants that was like it was a suit, so it was pants and a jacket, like from the 60s. It was nice. And I gave them a vintage zipper that was like the right time frame, the right kind of zipper, because being I sell vintage sewing stuff, I had it. And I said, I'm including this zipper for nothing because I want you to be able to like not search around for the right zipper. Like I'm making sure you have it. And the girl left me the nicest feedback and said, I can't believe like you're selling something that's broken, but you're giving me all the tools to fix it. And, like, what did the zipper cost me? Like pennies. Because, like, I'll buy a stack of vintage zippers when I see them. That, like, it was just that little extra touch that made her so excited to buy this that she spent, like, a really good buck for something that had had an issue, and she knew she was going to have to go right to a seamstress unless she can do it herself. But, as long as I almost overstate issues just because I don't want somebody to say, this is worse than I thought. Like I try to make it sound a little worse than it is because then I know you'll get it and you'll go, oh, this isn't so bad. And people are willing to put a little extra time into spot removal. Like I try to get everything out before I sell something. Sometimes you just can't get everything just the way you want it. But somebody who loves vintage will buy it in the hope that they can get it out, or they'll do something with it. Sometimes people deconstruct things and turn it into something else, or like I had somebody buy a dress and the skirt was adorable, but the top was kind of weird and just strange. She turned it into something else. Like she put a vintage top on it, like took the top off, sewed another thing on it, and made a new outfit out of it, and was thrilled.
It's funny. I've actually seen videos where that's exactly what people do. They'll go out and they'll buy like mixed match, vintage clothing, and they'll do like competitions on YouTube and stuff like that, and they'll just re-sew the thing and redesign it themselves and stuff like that. And
if you know how to sew and you love vintage, like I'm in another group on Facebook called Ooh La La Swap and Sell. They have tons of girls who dress in vintage and a lot of girls who sew. I sold this beautiful, like, 1950s, 1960s silk Asian fan fabric. It was absolutely stunning fabric, so pristine. I think I sold it for like $36 or $40. Like a week and a half later, she posts a picture of the dress she made with it. It was the most stunning bombshell 50s outfit that she used, like a 50s fabric, 50s pattern, 50s notions, and she sold it for $145 and altered it a little bit for the girl who was buying it to make it fit her perfectly. And like she whipped that up in no time. And I think, like, here, I made really good money on that fabric at $36, and she put her time into it and, made $145, less her time, because I'm sure it took her time to make it. But, like, a week and a half later, some girl is wearing that outfit. Like, that's just amazing to me.
They're happy. What is they're happy to get it, even at that price. It makes them happy.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've sold some items on that site that were really expensive things and sold them like that, because if that's your size and you have an event to wear that great 50s dress to, like, it's a fun site. Like, it's got thousands of members, and they buy a lot of stuff, those girls. And then they're always posting pictures. They look beautiful. Like, they look amazing. Like, glamorous 1950s movie stars.
You got to hook me up with those sites, seriously.
Yeah.
Actually, we have a couple good comments for you. Angela Martin says, I've been here a while, enjoying this because I sell vintage on Etsy, mostly jewelry, but some clothing too, vintage hat bags, etc. And then she also said, Linda, I get you. I love you so much.
Tell her thank you. I love her too.
Well, I'm sure she's listening right now. Dooley also says, Linda's really sweet. I love her.
Aw, that's nice.
We all do. But no, seriously, but let's get back to the estate sales, because I really want to finish up with this, because I think there's so much to learn with estate sales. And remember, I think it was Lynn was dying for me. For the longest time, she's dying me to get to. She's like, you should really go to this estate sale with me. You should really go to the estate sale with me. But I always find, like, I find really good stuff that I don't need to go to estate sales in the Goodwills. But ever since I went to that first one where I met you, I'm like, dude, I'm stuck on them. Like, I will do
That was such a good estate sale. There was so much stuff there. And then because of that one where we both bought a ton of stuff, we got to go early to that other one, and we both bought stuff. And I bought my awesome red chair, that great leather red chair that I found out is this really cool, it's Ecornis. It's this great Norwegian design company that's still in business, because I know somebody, this store in Cocoa, Rocket City Retro, they are amazing. Oh my God, that store is fantastic. And they have stuff by the same company. Like, they know their stuff with furniture. Oh my God, like, they have beautiful things.
See, that's what I was saying. I think it might have been the chair that you bought. There was two. Was it the one that had two of them? Because it was.
Well, they had two by that same company. This one was sitting in the bedroom with, like, I had thrown all my clothes that I was buying on top of it, but it was covered up because it had a couple little issues, but we don't care. And the other chair was by that same company, and I think they had like $400 on that chair. Like, I got this one for a really good price because it has a couple problems.
That thing, but there was a couple of them.
The lining's weird.
That guy knew his taste, and I mean, I couldn't believe. I went to that closet, me and Lynn. Actually, Lynn's on right now. She's Zulu. She just said, hey, Kevin, it's me, Lynn. I love Linda.
Hey, Lynn.
Of course, we all do. We all got to go to an estate sale sometime together. I think it's amazing what we found. But
this Friday, I'm working at one in Cocoa, but there's nothing old there. There's a lot of tools and stuff there. It's like guy stuff at this one.
Yeah, I'm starting to get more into like you are. Whenever you feel like you said, you feel like a piece of vintage clothing that is absolutely gorgeous, like this sport jacket right here. It's got the old label from LL Bean.
Yeah, the old LL Bean.
Yeah, you can just feel it's tweed made, and you can just feel how.
It just looks it's got that nice look of, like, the man smoking the pipe and putting his feet up, and the dog brings in the paper kind of a thing.
Or even the guy that's fishing, like you said, with smoking the pipe, the old guy fishing, because this guy was a sailor. He lived 9 years in a boat. Lived in a boat with I think it was his wife, all alone, and like he had all this stuff from all the stuff I think he grew up with. Yeah. Like he had we picked out. Me and Linda got 13 pieces of Pendleton. You had some Pendleton, and then wool
Oh,
rich.
and you got that sweater that I sent you
The Big
I found the
Lebowski.
picture of the guy, and I sent you the photo of the guy from school.
Oh yes, the Maryland Terrapins 1940s Letterman sweater I have listed.
That is awesome.
It's
And I mean, he was such a good-looking man, but it seems so funny. Like all of his pants were short. That I swear they had to be somebody else in the family because he looked so tall. Unless he was standing on a box in the picture because he was like behind.
yeah.
Could be. He might have been on a box.
But man, it was so amazing to just he was the guy that I just want to sit in a room and just talk to, because just the clothes.
It's neat having, like, my husband has a thing for yearbooks. Well, he's a teacher, so he loves yearbooks, and it's like such a neat little historical record of what was going on at that time. Like, it's cool, and he loves, like, he does a lot of vintage vinyl and old books and stuff. My husband, like, he's really into that kind of stuff, where I do more of the clothes and kitchen stuff. Like, we both have our little niche that we love, which is why we're good at picking together, because we like completely different things.
Yeah. What's it called? Anyways, yeah, we had an offer on that sweater today, the Big Lebowski one, for $100. I'm like, you kidding me? I told Ronnie about that. He's like, yeah, that guy's. He's like, don't.
I've seen those sweaters before, and I've not bought them because.
Are you serious?
I don't pay attention. It never dawned on me that that's what somebody was wearing in the Big Lebowski. We just watched the Big Lebowski again too, and yeah, it's a great movie.
We have it for $500 or $600, and we'll take anything over, I think, $350, $400. But man, I think
that's amazing.
It's gorgeous. That's another one I want to list super high and just wear. But she has that. I have the Letterman. But what we're doing with the top items we have, we're splitting 50-50 since we both.
Oh, that's nice.
Paid half the money, yeah. And I also got that Sherlin Woolrich jacket, man. That's a gorgeous one too. It's California Lamb, fabric's California Lamb, and it's like you look at these clothes and they're so much better made than nowadays. And you don't see stuff it's like art. You don't see the stuff anymore. You know what I mean?
Well, that's part of, like, with vintage clothing. It's all made in the USA. And I think, like, a lot of people are very conscious of the whole made in the USA thing. Like, I know the news, like, I watch, like, Eyewitness News. They do specials on that where they'll, like, go into somebody's house and show them all the things that are made outside of the U.S. and bring in stuff made in the U.S. People are very conscious, and if you're buying vintage, you're buying USA-made things. Like, that's kind of neat, like the handcrafted, looking at the union labels and all that stuff. Nothing is like that anymore, and it's nice to, like, when we look in our house, we have a lot of Danish modern stuff in here because our house is a time warp. But it's neat to find, like, handcrafted items. Vintage stuff is just made so much better. Like, in my kitchen, I have this little jar opener that was made in 1927. It was patented in 1929. I use this thing every time I have to open a jar, and it's from 1927. And I'll probably have it for the rest of my life because it will work that long. And I'll, like, when I die, there'll be an estate sale, and somebody will buy that thing and keep on using it. And this same company made them for years. They made them through, like, the 1950s, and then they stopped making them. They made such a good product that they're all still out there being used. Like, that's so weird. Like, no thing you buy at Bed Bath & Beyond now that's a jar opener.
Not at all.
Not still going to be used almost 100 years later. Like, that, it's such a perfect design. It's just this little thing. It's called a top off. I can get any jar off, no matter how hard it is. I can get it off myself.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So what are the tips you look for? I know we had a question earlier. Let me try to back up. Lynn said also, was that company the one with the chair called Stressless?
Yes, it's Equinus Stressless chairs.
And okay, here we go. Amy Mead said, what do you think is the best time to go to an estate sale? First in line, last day when it's 50% off. Inquiring minds want to know.
All right. If I look at the pictures on estatesales.net, say, and it looks like my kind of stuff, I will be there long before that sale starts. I will be the first in line or the second in line. Some companies, their prices are kind of on the high side. So sometimes that first day I might only buy the most amazing stuff, but I'll look around at everything else, like say I'll buy the stuff that's priced higher than I want to spend, but I know I can make money on it. I'll buy it anyway. But then sometimes I'll go back on that last day when it's half price day, and I'll buy all the stuff that I would have bought if I could afford it the first day. Like, because there's a lot of stuff, like when you like vintage like I do. Sometimes we'll go to an estate sale and like we're walking in the door and somebody's walking out and they go, oh, it's nothing but crap in there. And we'll go in and it's the most amazing vintage stuff. Because that person didn't want vintage. They wanted all new stuff, you know, that everybody has different tastes. That you never know what you're going to find even on the last day that people passed by. Like I found, we were at an estate sale. It was towards the end of the day. Like we had gone to other sales first, and then we just happened to stop at like this last moving sale, which normally I don't like a moving sale. It has to be an estate. Like I want to know some dead person owned this stuff, and everybody wants to get rid of it now. So we just happened to go to a moving sale because it was on the way back home. We're looking through the house. My husband said, oh, there's nothing good. I picked up a few design books because I have a friend who's a graphic designer, and I knew she'd get a kick out of them. I go into the garage. There was another little shelf with books on it, and I found a copy of On the Road, the Jack Kerouac book, On the Road. Turned out it was like a first printing, first edition of On the Road. So I ended up sending it to an auction house in New York, and it sold for like a few $100, but I paid $2 for it. Like, who knew? Like this stupid big McMansion kind of a house. They didn't really have anything good in the house, and their one awesome thing was in the garage.
See, that is exactly what I'm going to tell you right now. When I first started, I think the first week I started full time, me and my girlfriend, she can tell you this right now. We went the last yard sale or estate sale it was. They called it estate sale, which it was. The lady still lived, but her husband died, and she was selling off all the collection of his mugs and stuff and all the other stuff. He had a lot of old stuff, but at the time I didn't know anything about anything vintage. But I knew as soon as I saw these two mugs all the way in the corner, nobody was touching. As soon as I saw that, I had to move a girl. I'm like, dude, can you move, please? I got it right in there. I grabbed both mugs. As soon as I saw the bottom, it said Lennox. I'm like, bingo. I know exactly. This is old because Lennox, they only made mugs or Stein, whatever you want to call, for 10 years, from 1890 to 1900. And then I went home, and there was only there was no other one out with the same design.
Oh, that's great.
Yes, but
you know, like modern Lennox, all that stuff from the 80s, I will not touch it. You cannot get rid of it at estate sales. But everybody thought Lennox was so great in the 80s. It's like boring, cream-colored junk with a gold rim. It's so boring. Nobody wants it now.
In the 80s, and it has a monk drinking a beer and like a dog, and that's what the scene was. And I had two of them. One sold, I was such an idiot, asked my girlfriend. It was when I first started, okay, guys? I bought it for $1. I bought both of them for $2. And so I'm like, all right, let me do an auction. So I started the auction out at like $20, which I don't know why I did. I knew it was worth at least at least $400.
It's still a really good profit margin. It doesn't, you bought it for $1, that's a good profit margin.
Listen to this. On the last day, it became a bit more. And I knew I could have gotten a lot more than what I wanted, so it ended up going underneath my reserve. So I did is buy it now for like $200, and I didn't know what I did, but accept anything over $100, and I sold it for $120. But the second time out, I had the second one, and I did that as a buy it now for $300, and I didn't list it for about a month afterwards. I did it for $300, and it sold for $300. It was the same guy that bought the first one.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So I made out of $2, I made like $400 or $400, I think it was, and I'm like,
tell them the yard sale.
What yard
people
sale?
Gave us all their stuff.
Oh, and how I started also was this. I went to a yard sale, and they were selling this stuff like Ed Hardy, Affliction, Salvage, all this new stuff, clothing, because they're a lot into the fashion stuff. And he's like, I bought a couple things, just shoes off him. He called me that Sunday. He said, do you still want all this stuff? I came back. I got all the stuff for free, and I made over $1,200 off the stuff.
Oh, my God, that's amazing.
Those things is how I started, and that's how I got.
That's really fantastic.
Yeah.
And I always think it pays to be nice because, you know, people will turn around. Like the lady who hired me that I work for part-time, I was a good customer. I was always nice to her. A couple times she asked me questions because she knew I knew about different vintage things. She had asked me, you know, what would you pay for this? Because I don't know how much to ask for it, stuff like that. Like we just got to talking. She knew I was trustworthy, and then said, you know, what else do you do? I'm like, well, I just buy stuff from you and I list it, and that's it. Like, why? Do you need help? And it ended up that she did. So now, like, whenever she's got to do something else, I work for her every Friday that she's got a sale. I help her set up sales. I help her break the sales down and stuff like that. And it's been a great thing because, like, yeah, I go to estate sales all the time, but it's nice to be able to work at an estate sale and get first dibs on things, and then take it off from whatever money I'm making. Although sometimes, like that last sale, I spent like $250 there. I only worked one day and made $80. So it's like, it's as if I'm paying her to let me work there. But it was worth it because I know I'll sell that stuff for good money, you know.
And it's also, you're getting knowledge from her too, also. So you know, the more you get in with her, the more she's like, hey, listen, I need.
She knows different things than I do. Like, she knows glass, she knows jewelry, she knows furniture. Those are not things I know a lot about. So, like, I pick her brain on that stuff. She picks my brain on vintage and things like that. It's nice. Like, I was in retail for years, and I'm obviously talkative and a schmoozer. That, like, it's nice for me to be on the other side of the estate sale, because now I see all the regular people because I see them at every sale. So I'll put it on Facebook that, you know, I'm helping run an estate sale, and I get people to come that way, and I see everybody, and they all come to me, oh, I know Linda will give me a good price because I know her, you know, she knows I'm a picker, and, like, it's kind of nice because I know it brings her more people because of me being friendly and knowing everybody else who is, you know, the other pickers.
Yeah, I mean, Lynn right here said we helped Jeannie. I'm like, yeah, I think we all helped Jeannie by basically almost clearing out her house before she even had the sale.
And then I found all that sterling that she didn't know was sterling that was in that room. Yeah, she goes, oh, I forgot to bring my loop. And I'm like, I don't need a loop. That says sterling. I'm sure of it because I found that jewelry in there. Yeah. And that was great because I think somebody would have walked out with that stuff in their pocket without even paying for it. And she is so sweet. Like, she is just the nicest lady, isn't she? Like, I would hate to know somebody stole something from her.
When we went on Tuesday after you left, like, we're the last ones there. Actually, we're like the only ones there anyways the whole day. But after you left, like, towards the end around 2 o'clock, she just looked so burnt out. Like, she just looked...
She's tired. She works really hard for a woman her age. Yeah.
She looks so burnt out, and like when I went to leave, the lady was like, "Oh, wait a minute, Jeannie, you're gonna let her buy all this Pendleton?" She goes, "I know Pendleton. I have their catalog, and their stuff goes for hundreds of dollars." And I said to her, and I think maybe because I was tired too, I said, you know that I have to take time and I have to take time to figure out how much the stuff's worth. I gotta take time to edit pictures. I gotta take time to figure out what I can get for this stuff.
Right. And it's like we're steaming and ironing and putting it on our mannequins and making it look all perfect and editing the photos, writing the descriptions. And I've talked about that with Jeannie, and she has said to me, oh, I don't know how you do it. And I'm like, well, I don't know how you do this. Like, I do know because I do it as well. But she's no kid. You know, she works her butt off getting those sales ready. But then, like, we do the other side. It is a lot of work to do listings. Like, people think you can just knock them out. But it takes a lot of preparation. And, like, sometimes, you know, I'm like this dress, having to have it dry cleaned and, like, deciding on a price and looking at what the comparable sold for. There's a lot of research that goes into it. Like, certain things you get to know that item and you know what it's going to sell for and you know what it's going to cost to ship, and it's easier. But there's always the first time you buy something. Like with me, we like weird stuff. Sometimes we just buy something because we think it's interesting. We don't know anything about it. We have no idea what it is. We just think it's cool. And, like, we've decorated our whole house out of estate sales. Like, everything in here is something cool from an estate sale. Like, there's really almost a couple pieces of furniture that are new. Our mattresses are new. Everything else is out of somebody else's house.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, that picture behind me was from estate. So I got two pictures, one up here, one way down the hallway. That's from estate. So I got a cross point hanging up, a vintage from like the 1800 cross point up there hanging up. I just love it.
Check out the one behind me. Wait, I can't tell if I'm showing you it or not.
Yeah, you're showing me it.
Yeah, that's a Highwayman that we bought in an estate sale.
Real?
A Florida Highwayman, yeah.
Dude, those things go for like $10,000. My friend's mom has a real Highwayman that somebody wanted to buy right off her for $10,000.
This is like an original one. It's an old one. I think we bought it for like $325 at a sale. Like, but it's not like a huge one. But it is a night scene, which I prefer. I don't like those big garish orangey ones. Like, I like the night scenes or the stormy ones.
how can you tell what a highwayman is? Because I've never really.
There were only 26 artists. There were 26 artists that are considered highwaymen.
And you know the artists?
Well, there's certain ones you see more often because they were more prolific. And we've looked them up and stuff and like know a lot of the names. Like Sam Newton, he's still painting. He still lives in the area. I was at a party with him last year. I was sitting next to him talking to him about art. It was awesome.
He lives around here?
He's the only one who's still painting really anymore. And we met, there's another one who's still living who I met at an estate sale, and he's completely blind, which broke my heart. Like, he made his living making art, and now he's blind and he can't see. Like, he can't see the beautiful things he did before. Like, so sad. But I'm trying to think who ours is by. Of course, it's dark. I can't see. Ours is a Willie Daniels.
See that?
Like, if you look up the Wikipedia on who they are, and like you'll get to know their stuff.
You know,
but in Florida, everybody knows who they are, and their stuff is really high. Like, if you're somebody at an estate sale somewhere else where, you know, their parents came down to Florida back in the 50s and 60s when these guys were doing it, bought it on the off-ramp, you know, after leaving Disney or Miami or something, brought it home to, like, Ohio or wherever, you're going to get one for next to nothing at a garage sale because they think it's, like, junky Florida tourist art, when really now they've become real artists.
Man, that's just crazy.
It's harder to find them in Florida than it is to find them outside of Florida.
I just think
you get bargains there. Here, you don't get any bargains.
If you look at that scene, though, I like the scene. It's like a little stormy night scene.
Yeah.
You see down here. We see that stuff down here in Florida. You know what I mean?
Because there's a lot of, like, knockoff highwayman stuff. You see all those, you know, Florida beachy art tacky crap. And like some of it is kind of on the tacky side. Like the ones with the Royal Poincianas, there's just so much orange in them. They're just too much for me. It's not. I just don't like those bright colors. Like, I like that it's more subdued and looks like a stormy night. I just find it more calming like that. But yeah, we have tons of cool art in our house. That's all just stuff we've picked up, like old originals. Like, we've got a little collection of nudes from the 50s and 60s that are all like pencil or charcoal art.
I know that Lynn, actually, I don't know if she ever told you the story, how she got picked up a, oh man, who's the artist? He's, I hope, Lynn, you're hearing me so you can write the artist's name. Anyways, so she picked up for $50 at an estate sale, and the lady in front of her was like, oh, I'll give you $20. And then she waved for the lady to walk away, and then she said, you know, I'll give you $50. And the lady said, okay. Come to find out, she sent it to a guy that actually knew the artist and has a museum of the artist. And it's just, you could tell when you see this painting, you could tell it's a quality made painting. She never had it appraised, but the guy sent her back because he does the appraisals. He said, I'm super excited. I can auction this thing if you need it, or I can take it here. He's like, but this thing's about a $6,000 painting.
Oh, that's amazing.
It is.
You never know what you're going to find somewhere. And like a lot of times at a sale, art will be pretty inexpensive because people just don't really know. Like the company that I work for, one of the girls who works with us is an artist. So she can look at it. She knows right away what the medium is, approximately when it was done. Like, she knows a lot about art. So when there's art at a sale, we end up, you know, pricing it a little bit high. But there really are bargains out there. Like, we've got a ton of original art in the house. I really don't know if any of it's worth a lot or by anybody important. We just liked it. We just liked it. You know, we don't really care. You know,
I love that scene right there. I just think it's so cool, like with the barn and the wheelhouse and just the people sitting down on the thing. And I got that thing for
like serene and homey.
Yeah, I got that at an auction because I liked it, and I got another. It came with two other ones with big frames like that. It may look small, but it's really wide. But Linda said the artist's name is George E. Lee.
Yeah, I don't know that I know who that is.
He did like marine and nautical.
There's just so much out there. Like, you know what we sell a lot of? Well, you're young, you might not remember this. Back in like the 60s, they had this, it was like a whole pop art movement called Big Eye Prints. And it's like all these sad kids with big eyes or dogs and cats with big eyes, and they look all sad and forlorn. We sell tons of that stuff. It's so kitschy. It's like the tackiest art ever. But it really sells very well because a lot of people like that whole, like 60s kitsch mod stuff. Like, I just sold a set of 4 prints, and it's all these kids in like mini dresses and needle boots dancing. Like, it's really ridiculous looking, but it's sold like that. I think I paid like $1 for them at a sale and sold them for like 40 or something.
You could pick some good ones up for really cheap money. Like people,
Yeah.
people at these like Goodwill, Salvation Armies, they don't know what they are. They just put a price 15, 20, 30.
The thrifts are getting high. Like they're all savvy to eBay, and sometimes like stuff we used to be able to pick up in a thrift store for next to nothing is now really high. Like we just went to a thrift store today. They had an orange, not a trim line phone, like the next one after that, like a push button 70s bright orange phone, $30. And it was like kind of crappy. Like it was, you know, it had marks and scuffs on it, and it was a little bit faded. Like we'd be selling it for $30. We want to buy it for 10 or less.
Yeah.
Like, and they had $30 on it. It's like, no thanks, you know.
I found some cool little artwork, and I know it was original because Linda told me if you could find the artwork and you look at the back and you could see the fingerprints on the back of the canvas or some sort of marks with a paint, because I never knew this before she told me this.
Yeah.
So I specifically went to this estate sale. There was crap and everything was all cleared out. I saw this cool looking artwork. I looked at the back of them and I saw the fingerprints, and I'm like, but they want $50, and they were pretty big. But I'm like, you know what? Should I do $50 for this, or should I go to this, a thrift store or somewhere else right now and try to, stretch that $50 out?
And stuff like that, like if you're sure you can sell it, fine. Or if you want it for your house, it's different. Like we don't care sometimes. Like we'll pay a little more for something if we want it for us. You know, if you want it for your own home and it's going to be a piece you're going to enjoy, that maybe down the road you might sell it, but for now you're going to enjoy and you're going to get your money's worth out of it. That's different. Like if you just want to flip things, I wouldn't spend $50 if I didn't know for sure, like who it's by and that you can sell it. Because art is subjective. Just because it's original doesn't mean anybody else wants it. Like I look at a lot of things that sell for big money, and I think it's hideous. It's just not my style. It's not my taste.
I don't know if you could tell me this though, but the art was like, it was really out there and catchy, because like it looked like, say you're inside of a windshield and it's raining out, and or you put the windshield wiper on and it's pouring out, and it's that little,
oh, I know what you're talking about. They're like street scenes where there's rain. All right,
that's
there's a famous artist did those. Roy, do you remember the name? You know the kind I'm talking about. It was often like a street scene in Paris.
That's what it was.
My husband has one in England. I don't know if it's by anybody good. But that was a certain style that was like big in the mid-century, and there was an artist who I think was French who was famous for doing that. But then a million other artists did that same style. And they're not really worth much because they're a dime a dozen. And they were huge in the mid-century period. Every house had something like that. Yeah. So like all the starving artists type painted that kind of stuff to do it in the style of that other artist, which now I can't remember his name. Not long ago we saw an Antiques Roadshow where they had some by the original guy, and they're worth a lot of money. But I wouldn't have known his from anybody else's because they all look alike. And it's not really my style either. Like, I don't know, they're a little kitschy looking.
And it's like, though, but seriously, it's like when you go into an estate sale, I know, I don't know much, but I've gotten to know that if you go into the place, you kind of have that feel of an old place. This place, when I went into it, felt more of a modern place. So that's why I kind of made the decision, $25 to $50 on the paint. I was gonna pass just because I felt like it was more modern. Like just in the house, it didn't look like they had much. Not money, but it's more like it was more like more like 1990s and newer. Yeah. So that's why I made a decision. Like, no. We
always say, like, we prefer to go to estate sales in regular middle-class houses because they bought the best they could afford at the time, and then they took good care of their things. Like, I think a lot of people more now, like, they have more of a throwaway view of things. They don't take as good care of things. They don't respect things as much, and they can buy more.
But that's how the culture is nowadays, though. You gotta admit, that's
it's very that doesn't work right. Throw it away. Throw it away. Where people took care of things and they fixed it, and a man bought a pair of shoes for work. When the soles got worn, he had it resoled. He didn't just throw them away and buy a new pair of shoes. Like it's just not like that now.
Yep. Actually, you know what though? At that estate sale, I passed on. Ronnie Hart told me. I said I passed on a pair of Church's shoes. In that closet when I first started in the closet where he had all the dress shirts, not the high end stuff. But I looked at these custom grade Church's and I knew I should have grabbed them. But everything was going on. I didn't know who else was in the house.
Shoes are a tough thing.
But Ronnie said that's an easy $250.
Oh, really? See, I'm funny about shoes. Like, used shoes are a little funny. Not everybody wants to wear them. Not everybody wants to put the time in to clean them, or if you have to bring them to a shoe guy and have anything done. And women's shoes are all uncomfortable, like dressy shoes. They all hurt. I don't know how women walk around in high heels. But, like, women will put up with some discomfort if it's going to go with a certain outfit. Like, they might buy a vintage pair of shoes to go with that vintage dress and that vintage purse. And they don't care if those shoes don't really fit them right and they hurt. They'll just wear them for that 3-hour event and then take them off. But, like, men's shoes are more comfortable. Maybe it's easier with men's shoes. I don't know. But I don't have great luck with vintage shoes that I kind of try to stay away. Because are they going to fit? You can't try them on, you know.
I just don't know how Ronnie does it because it's like every time I turn around, he has his weekly like screens of like his best sales. Every one of them, there's at least $200 pair of dress shoes, and I'm like, I don't know. He does go to 16 different stores and stuff like that all the time, but it's like, oh my gosh, I don't know how he finds them down here. When we get them, by the time we get them, it's all beaten up. And
Everybody's got flip flops. Every house we go into has 16
flip flops. Yeah, that's the thing. You know, like, but there's really no money in flip flops. You know.
No.
But I have a good question for you, Linda. Actually, I want to say hi. California Pickens in here. He said, Kevin, you're a fine interviewer. Keeps topics flowing without being pretentious or stopping the guest. I'm a natural. Kudos, Kevin. Thank you. Question for Golden Finger Picker. We have some vintage dresses, and do you measure vintage dresses differently than today's dresses? Seems the waistline is so much smaller than back then than they are today.
Yeah, everything. I just measure everything. I measure across the shoulders, across the bust, under the bust, at the waist, at the hip, from the arm to the hem, from the back of the collar to the hem, like every measurement. You have to give the girls every single measurement.
See, because I've been skipping out because I didn't know because I know in jeans, I don't do the full length because I always go by the inseams, but
you also want to give people the rise with jeans, like from the crotch to the
rise, all that stuff. I just skip the length for some reason. I don't know. It just seems that the people from the inseam and the waist and stuff like that. It should be fine.
Like, if you always buy the same, Levi's 505s, I know 34 fits me. The person's going to be fine, but if they're buying their size in a brand they maybe don't know, like I just try to give as much, like I try to describe things as if I didn't have pictures, if that makes sense. Like that you get everything from my description and the pictures are a bonus.
Yeah, that's how I'm super OCD about my listings. And
I'm a little anal. I have a friend who got kicked off of eBay recently because they told her that she consistently did not describe things enough.
Wow.
I'd never heard of that, and she sold on eBay for years, and she's a very good seller. Like, she's an honest seller, and she sells beautiful things. She sells jewelry. She was absolutely shocked. Like, she had never heard of that happening before, and I never did either. But she is not allowed to sell on eBay ever again. And
I personally bought a Bruins jersey only because it's, like, my team, and it was playoffs time, and I had to have a jersey because I have never had an NHL sweater. They call them sweaters. And so I bought this one. The listing was like this. The guy never had no feedback. So the listing, the shirt was on top of his bed, and the bed was, like torn apart, and it was new at tags. And in the listing, his description was this. This was nowhere to lie. His description. I won this on a bet, and I wanted the Randy Moss jersey, but they gave me the Bruins jersey. I don't want it, so I'm selling it.
Oh my God.
And then they wrote, "Is this okay?" That's what they wrote in the listing. Okay. So I bought it. And I took it, and it took forever to get here. It took me about 14 days to get here, and it kept feeling like I kept getting the beat around the bush. And I mean, like, if they didn't kick somebody off for that, no measurements, nothing, then I don't know how somebody like that can get kicked
off.
And
that's like a huge thing with clothing that I will say. Don't photograph anything on the floor. I don't care how clean do you think your floor is? I'm always seeing clothes laying on the floor. I don't want to wear stuff off your damn floor. I don't care it's clean. You step on that floor. I'm not wearing clothes from there. That is such a huge turnoff to people. Like, okay, not everybody has a nice place to do it, but, like, put a blanket down, a sheet, even something so we don't know it's on your floor. Like, that's just...
When I first had it, I bought a polyester fabric. You know, those polyester fabrics down from Walmart. You can get for $9, and it's a pretty mixed with the background too. And I put it down because the first thing, I think one of the first things somebody told me was, don't put it on the floor and take pictures. It looks dirty and it just doesn't look professional. So that was like a basic knowledge for me.
See, now you have your nice mannequin. You're all set.
I found that in Melbourne, at the Melbourne Square Mall behind.
That's awesome. Hey, what time are we wrapping up? Because I'm old and
I'm all set now. I got enough for you. An hour and like 20 minutes, dude. I didn't want to interrupt
you. Like, I'm usually in my pajamas and no makeup on by now, getting ready for bed.
I know. I'm sorry, but seriously, thank you so much. Next week.
You're welcome.
Next week, I hope you can watch because I'll have Katie Patton on. She's a guru at Amazon, and she was one of the original YouTubers that did the YouTube videos and stuff like that.
Oh, that's neat. Yeah, I'm going to be on eBay Radio tomorrow. You gave me the hookup. Thank you.
Of course, you're welcome on that. I hooked up Jeff Davidson and who else did hook up last week? Oh, Steve Rake and I hooked up on that because she's like,
cool.
You know, from now on, I'll be asking you for guests.
And I'll be going over the same thing because I didn't have time to really do anything else because my computer was down most of today. I had to reinstall my operating system. So I'm like, I hope you don't mind, but we're going over vintage clothes.
But no, seriously, this is an awesome subject because I think vintage is super. Like, I never looked at vintage clothes as like really cool, but until I started selling on eBay and getting no vintage items, I'm like, dude, I love wearing it. I feel like it's just super.
Plus, you're really young, you don't remember it. Like I remember growing up when I did, like watching old movies and thinking those women looked so glamorous and that stuff. Like I was just always attracted to that.
Seriously, I'd love to wear that freaking what is that called? The Big Lebowski sweater, dude. Like I wore it one night in the hangout, and it was so comfortable.
That's nice. Yeah, like I grew up watching like I Love Lucy reruns and Mary Tyler Moore and that stuff. Like I wanted to dress like those women, you know.
But
cool.
Thank you again for coming on.
Oh, you're welcome. Bye, everybody.
You gotta invite me to your house soon. I mean,
I will.
I love it. Thank you very much, and have a good night. I'm going to bed.
All right. Good night.
Love ya.
Bye.